Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. If you are trying to evaluate whether real estate is the right career for you, wondering whether you are doing the right things to launch into quick success, or looking for tips and tools you can use today to become a more productive agent, this is your podcast. Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. This is season 5, Success Stories. And I am so excited for our guest today. Our guest is someone who is a dear and close friend of mine who we've been trying to get together to do a show for a long time, I think.
Yeah.
And finally, she's here. So I can't wait for you guys to get to know Alicia. So Alicia Soekawa is the founder of a company called The Collaborative in Central Virginia, specifically like the Richmond area. She is a very successful business person, a top producing real estate team leader and business owner. Both of us are coaches for Ferry International, which is Tom Ferry's organization. I know you guys have heard me talk a lot about Tom and the coaching that his company offers on our podcast. And Alicia and her husband actually work together, like my husband and I do. So we have a lot of commonalities. And we're going to dig a little bit deep in our episode today. What we are titling this episode is When the Going Gets Tough. And I know it has been a little bit tough out there, or a lot tough, depending on where you are in your career and in which part of the country you're in. But the real estate market it's gotten kind of serious. It's a little different than it used to be in kind of the unicorn years where it was super fun and transactions were just landing in our laps all the time. So I want to introduce Alicia to you. Alicia is also a working mom. She has 3 kids like I do. So we've, again, got a ton in common. And Alicia brings some strengths to the table that are, I think, unique, I'm going to say. Some really cool styles of communication. She's also a certified national speaker. So without further ado, Alicia, thank you so much for being on the show. So appreciate you being
That was a beautiful introduction, and I hope I can live up to that because it was a lot. People that know me, I'm probably very like the most normal person, and they're like, "You're exactly like how you are online." I'm like, pretty much. Like, I can't really fake anything much. I tried.
Great things about you. You are super authentic in who you are. You don't put on any guises. Like you are you, and that's one of the beautiful things about you. You are a strength and a pillar, and you give so much to the people that you coach, and you've given so much to me in your friendship. So I'm incredibly grateful and so happy to have you on today.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and you can only be a good friend if you're a good friend back. So it's an exchange that we have, which is beautiful. And I think it's a message out there for those of you that are searching for deeper, more connecting relationships that are out there, but you have to put in to get it back. You have to be open, right, for that to happen. So I think that's a big message, especially in our industry. It can be very lonely sometimes. So
yeah, and I think that's a really good kind of place to start with this subject is when the going gets tough, because that's one of the things that I would say as a tip is get outside of yourself is maybe one of the things to do first. So we'll talk about that. But when you hear, when things get tough, what do you think of first, Alicia?
I probably don't look at tough the same way as some people look at it. I think I've changed my reaction to things to kind of go like, what am I learning in this moment versus like, why is this happening to me? Like that victimization mode, which a lot of people tend to fall into very easily.
Yeah.
You learn it as children, like it's not my fault, always looking to figure out where to place that blame. And it's about taking ownership that you have choices in life, and choices come with consequences, and choices come with successes, and choices come with, like, it's all about decisions and follow through. And I think our industry more than ever will demonstrate very quickly the choices that you make. Does that make sense? Like, when you make a decision to not follow up with someone, when you make a decision, and I say decision because you're making a decision, it's a choice, you're making a decision. And I think it's such a much more finite word than choice, because sometimes choice leans to saying, well, I don't have a choice. You have a choice. You have a decision. You've made the decision. to not pick the phone up and call someone or ask for their referral or demonstrate your value to someone. You make a decision. And in that decision making, you're not realizing it will link to why you are busy and not busy. It will link to why you don't have a relationship. It will link to things. I don't know if that resonates or lands. And I think that there's a lot of decision making that happens, just like when you make a decision to get up and have the discipline and do the things you need to do that we all know we need to do to move forward in whatever you choose in life. So sometimes the tough stuff is the decisions that you don't want to do. Like you hear all that, like you have to make your choice, right? Because it's hard no matter what. There's decisions. If you choose the easy path in the moment, the difficulty comes later.
Yes, choose your hard, right?
We hear that all the time, and it's really weird because you hear these sayings and I think you think like, oh, it's another saying, I don't want to deal with it, but there's truth, so much truth behind it if you really let it sit with you. And a lot of times people don't want to hear it because it's easier to sit in your muck or ick. It's easier. Because you want to feel sorry for yourself and you want people to feel sorry for you and feel sympathy and you poor you, or, oh yeah, it's like a version of the water cooler. So when I was in corporate, we would all get together and be on these group messages about how much we hated the company and how much like, F this, or like and it would be like the misery would attract. It's like very low vibration, right?
Yeah.
If you think about energy levels. And it's interesting though, if you tend to choose not to participate and you just are like, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way. You experience it differently.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by tough. Like I made a decision to experience tough as this is a lesson and not even call it tough, because there is a meaning behind the word tough as like, you can't permeate it. You can't, you can't, you know what I mean? Like it's hard, but it's not hard. It's a lesson.
Yeah.
So even like when our kids aren't listening to us, or which they never do, or you feel like you're in your mind failing as a parent or in business or whatever, you're not really failing. You're learning something in that moment that you're supposed to learn.
Right. Yeah. And when you frame it that way, it takes on that word tough, like you said, takes on a very different meaning.
Like if you say tough, it immediately makes me go, ooh,
yeah,
I don't want to do that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like that. But if you say, what are we learning right now? It's like, even when you think of yourself like as a new agent, you're learning a lot. That's why it's so difficult in your mind, because everything is hard before it's easy. Like you could write contracts left and right and know exactly what to say, but that's not because you're a genius, no offense. It's because you've had that muscle memory. You've done it for, hundreds and hundreds of transactions. So you have an expert level because you've done it 100 times. Just like when you drive a car or you do anything. And when you watch someone, that's what I meant about comparison and how you insert yourself into these communities. There is a place of, oh my God, I need to do this. And if I do this, then this will happen. Not necessarily.
Right.
So it may or may not, but you also may need 5 years. And maybe someone's 5 years is someone's 1 year.
Yes.
Right. Because we have some colleagues that we admire very much that have seemingly done all the things, and you're like, wow, like how are they doing that? I guarantee you there's stuff we don't know. Just like everybody has stuff. You're not gonna like put a flag out for the whole world to see all your stuff and difficulties,
Right. But that I think is kind of what we're showing people today. And, I think Alicia knows me really well. And for those who have been in the audience for a while, there might be some things you find out about me today that you didn't know, because we want to show you a little bit of what that tough can look like. I think sometimes we see, like you were just referencing, Alicia, the end result of a lot of lessons that we never saw the person experience.
Yes.
And so we were talking about this the other day. We see a colleague, for example, who has like a cold plunge pool or a private jet. And we're like, oh, well, we need that because that then will be successful. No, that's not how they got there. That was like after. That's an after effect of all of the things that they had to
Mhm.
trudge through to get to the place they are now. And maybe they're elevating with that tool that they now
Yes.
work to employ. But that wasn't why they got there. That's way after the all the work was done and all the lessons were learned. Um, when you said before, the hard comes before the easy, what popped into my mind was some agents that I've been talking to recently who are like, it was so easy at first, right? So there are these agents who came into this market when transactions were like falling out of the sky. And perhaps they were with a company or a team who were providing leads at a pace that nobody could even keep up with. And now those leads have turned a different direction. And we have some things happening in the real estate industry that are definitely a bit of a challenge right now. And so
Yeah.
there are people who feel like, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. What do you say to those agents?
You know, I don't think you ever know anything's going to be a challenge or bumpy, right?
Mm,
It's like having children, right? We each have three,
yeah.
and we each have the easy child and the hard child, and
Yes.
that's exactly the pair. Like one may like, oh, so easy, and the next one you're like, what the hell is this shit? Like this one was fine. Why is this one not listening? I always tell people a house is a house. Just like when I was in medical sales, a hospital's a hospital. Like every every human has so many dynamics. Every deal has so many dynamics and challenges that can appear out of nowhere. And until like I had a client I was coaching and she's never had a deal fall through. I was
Oh,
like, well, get ready, sister. And it's like all of a sudden it's happened. And I'm like, this is part of the gig. And
mm-hmm.
until it happens to you, you don't think that it can happen. And when it happens, it's the end of the world and you
Yeah.
can't get around it. And I think part of the easy is that's great. That shows you that it can be that way in the business. However, there's many things that can happen in the business. And what it is happening now is teaching you how to navigate up and down in the business
Mm-hmm.
so that you can always have a steady income.
Yeah.
So if you always navigate it like how the business is challenging, when it isn't challenging, you're going to be 10 times more successful. But it's
Exactly.
like a false, like, it's like saying, you know, like people that go to California and the weather's like perfect all the time year round. But then they deal with earthquakes,
Mm.
the cost of living. Like there's always an upside and a downside to anything you're dealing with in life. Like relationships, right? It was the most best relationship ever until something happens.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think it's like a false illusion. If you get into the business because you think it's easy, it's like people that like I actually look for that. Why do you want to do this? If
Mm.
I hear people say, well, I really like houses, I say, well, this is not for you. Because
Right.
the house is like 1/10 of the what we do. And it's
Yeah.
the truth. And most of the time, you're not looking at houses that you're excited about. They're just
Right.
normal houses. And
Right.
so with normal people living in it, it doesn't look like a TV show, you know? And I think it's important to put a reality check, just like the Instagram post or the holiday picture that, people, what do you call it? Curate that whole curating thing, that word
Mhm.
curate, like you're curating the image that you want people to see. And
Yes.
so because of the HGTVs, exactly what's happened to sellers is they've been cursed with the HGTV, right?
Yeah.
Remember when that first came out and
Yeah.
that changed the whole game for sellers, where
Mhm.
they were like now like punished if their home didn't look like an HGTV.
Mhm. Yep.
And so it's similar to that, what this shows that we've gotten that like glamorize our business and make it look like you don't do business is just there as a fashion show and to drive fancy cars,
Yeah.
that I think it doesn't we never actually see an actual contract go through in those shows, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
You never see paper. And I'm like, well, where's the signatures? Where's the DocuSign? Where's the paperwork? Like where's the admin? Like where's the and sitting in an inspection? So it's like I think people have to realize what they're falling in love with is not real.
Mm. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like when you put the makeup on and
Right.
you have the fake lashes and the fake everything and the push-up bra. It's like the date you go on and you're like, she's super hot. And then later on, you're like, what the hell happened?
Yeah,
So they
exactly.
got a glimpse of the glory days, right? The unicorn years. So that's where I think we will see a receding of the market. which I think is appropriate if you were here for the wrong reasons.
Yes. Well
So
said.
those agents listening now, if you are that person, we welcome you to turn your license in because you're not doing a service to yourself or to anyone around you because this is not easy money. It just isn't. It's just like there's people that go into flipping because it's easy in their mind.
Right.
And then we've seen those crap flips out there that we have to sell. And it is a disaster on the inspection report. And then you're like, what have we, they get out of business real quick because they think it's easy.
Right.
So
Get
it's
sued.
the same, every industry goes through it, I believe.
Yes. I agree.
It's like a hype, it's like the trendy, glossy, just like everyone wants to be a influencer.
Yeah.
Everybody wants, remember when I'm a YouTuber. That
You
was a
are.
whole, and you're like, what? What is that? Like, there's a whole thing. Like, I'm a social media
Right.
person. What is that? Like,
Yep.
because it looks glamorized and fun, and they see people making all this money, and our industry is no different than that.
Yeah.
And heaven forbid their actual work and business and skills. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, now I have to quit.
So, what do you say to somebody who is listening right now and they're going, oh, maybe I am that person? How do you know? Like, what is there a litmus test? Should they go talk to somebody?
I think that's all within yourself. Like if someone's coming to you and saying this is so hard, it was so easy before, and they're like losing their beans. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called like business.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I
And
can't
having
even.
people who can be real with you. I think that's important too. And that's one of the things that I've loved about our friendship is when I need to hear something, you are real with me, you're straight with me. And sometimes there are things that I need to hear because, what has happened with our relationship is you've seen me go through where I was wallowing for a while. And you told me some things that I need to hear and some hard things and helped me come out of that. And I know you had times too before I knew you where things were tough. So is it okay if I share what your hard?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's turning points that happen in life. Like,
Yeah.
you have like nudges,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes you need a boulder to hit you upside the head before you wake up.
Yeah. So Alicia had, how many years ago was it that you had breast cancer?
2019,
Okay.
June, it's like June 1st.
Yeah.
2019, I think it was around then. And then I got the confirmation like the towards the end of the month. It was a long process. So I had a mammogram done, and I to get your detection, like go, I'm 100% behind that. They found it early, luckily. But I was kind of in denial about all of it. I was like, I actually got in a fight with the doctor about it because I was like such a control freak about like I don't got time for this. I literally told the doctor I do not have time for this, which is the most ridiculous sounding thing. And I kind of got mad about it. And when we went and saw like the scans and everything, and I went back for like a biopsy and all that stuff, and they call you in, and it's a really scary moment because you don't really know if there's more. There's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty, which is for people like me and you and people that are drivers, it's a very hard place to be. We're so used to being in control.
Yeah.
And it really made me evaluate about what the things I was prioritizing in my life. That
Mm,
was probably the first time I really took a look at it.
mm. Because
And
fall in
and
love, you created your business. It was in those unicorn years. You had little kids.
I had little kids. Rain was not even 2 years old. So she was a little over a year old when I found out. Luckily I had a really strong assistant at the time. And I made a decision to keep it private. Like my children don't know. They knew I was sick, but they didn't know what the diagnosis was because we had just lost some good friends to cancer. And, at that time, my daughter has epilepsy at that time, and she still has had seizures again. And my son is on the spectrum and they're younger. And I think the grasp of understanding, we made a decision as a family not to loop them in on all of the verbiage, if that makes sense, because language has meaning. And
Yeah.
we just said, Mom needs to get a couple surgeries. Well, that turned into many, many surgeries with complications and sepsis and all that good stuff. But, fast forward all of it and looking back, I managed my business the whole time because I planned it out. So I
Mm,
had to shot all my content. My assistant had take care of it. I actually had a better dis time period when I was in that from like June. It was almost a year. So it was like June, the double mastectomy and reconstruction wasn't until August. So I had like that period to prepare, but I was also in my head freaking out. Like I had an MRI. I didn't know if the stuff meant it was metastatic. And also I sold in oncology when I was medical. So I knew more things than I needed to know. So that's never a good thing.
Right.
And it's like, it's like when you're an agent and you know how to sell houses and your mom's selling a house, you freak out about things that you know because you know more than other people know.
Uh,
So I didn't have the gift of ignorance, which was probably, I wish I did, because that would have kept me from being cuckoo. I had like several breakdowns and realizations and things of like, what does this mean? Like, if I don't get better, what does it mean? What does it mean for our family? And there's something called a hit by the bus test in business. Like if you can be hit by the bus and your business still goes on. Like we don't, no realtor has hit by the bus. And I was
right.
like, well, this is not good. Like, I just kind of thought about things. And my coach at the time, who's still my coach today, Emily was like, I really think once I got through the surgeries and I was doing better, like I had two more surgeries left. That's when she had offered, kind of put my name out to be a coach. And
Hmm.
that was like a really turning because she was thinking in her mind, I had had a baby in the business. I had gone through a lot of stuff that people will resonate with and need support in. And I think, it kind of was good timing for me to take that step back and do the coaching, and learn how to navigate it with the business, if that makes sense. And then COVID hit. It was like it was such a weird time because I've been coaching since 2020 now. So I've been through all of this and it's been such an interesting journey. And I look back and I'm really grateful for that opportunity now. Um, I think that I was a lot more vain before the surgery. That makes sense. Like very much about the, I was more fixated on that, like your outward appearance and certain things have to be a certain way. And it's not that I don't want to, take care of myself and things like that, but I think I don't put the emphasis there as much as I used to. That makes
Was it
sense. Like,
perfectionism or something else?
yes, very much like that.
Okay.
Like not, just like everything had to be a certain way. Again,
Yeah.
it's control, right? And not understanding
Yes.
and not feeling,
Yeah.
and also wanting the approval, which I think is something that we see very much of why people go into our sales industry. What salespeople are made of is they're seeking that approval. And
Yes.
that's that bravado. That's where you see like, I'm the man, look at me, I'm the man. You have the tyrant and the minions, like that whole model you see is because that person is looking for validation in the numbers. That's why sales is so satisfying for
Yeah.
that personality type, because you have a measurement of, if I do this, then I'm great,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
can measure it. Like
Yeah.
very other businesses, like creative businesses, there isn't the same measurement that's so finite. So
Right. Exactly. And
that's,
you get that acceptance and rejection often in
yes.
agency agreements and, listing consultations, whether your
Yeah.
offer is accepted, that all feeds that same monster.
And that monster sometimes is good, and
Right.
sometimes it can be very detrimental to your sanity. And, I've seen it have good things happen to people and bad things happen to people.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how like this media can turn on people, right? One day they
Mhm.
love you, one day they hate you. And like,
Yeah.
like Taylor Swift right now is having this whole phenomenon. I feel like they're going to turn soon on her because it's like too much.
You're right.
Like
Yeah.
that's what happens. Like people turn on you out of nowhere and you're like, what just happened? So if
Yeah.
you don't have enough grounding of who you are,
Mhm.
it's very difficult. And I think that's what we see coming out in this business when they're like, it's too hard.
Yes. 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 I
So
agree.
to circle back to the too hard, which
Yeah. And I mean, talk about too hard. So many people in your same situation would have, especially people I think who are really control driven people, because for those of you who are like us and are control driven, when something feels out of control in your life, you do everything you can to control everything else that you
yes.
possibly can.
Yes.
And and sometimes that leads to really disastrous consequences in the rest of your life, because we all know we can't control our external environment. We can't control other people. You feel like you can, but you can't. So what you did was you went from like that, the denial, And then I guess there was some probably grieving and acceptance that happened at some point along that. But it sounds like I heard you say, I got everything planned. So you did control, like you put some controls in place there. But what I know about you since then is, although I know that was, and becoming a coach during that time was such a gift. And you have now
Yes.
that gift forward to the hundreds of real estate agents that you've helped transform their careers through what you've done, through your coaching of those agents. So it was like the gift that paid forward and forward again, which is beautiful. And you have grown immensely as a person since even that happened. I mean, I know that had a transformative effect on you, but there's been
Yeah,
so much
definitely.
since then, even that you've really evolved as a human being. Because the Alicia that sat at the beginning of this podcast and said, you have to look at the lesson in everything, is a very different person, I think, than would have reacted to a similar situation then. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even I think the growth pattern, I think when you're yearning for growth, so any of those of you that are out there that are searching for growth, whether it's personal, professional, and I think personal, professional, it's all one. It really is. It's your life. It's your freaking life, right? No matter what age you are, young, old, whatever, I think if there's a yearning, I say go for it. And I think a lot of people feel weird, like, oh, I'm going to self-help. They kind of like demonize what it is, or it's a fake thing, or oh, you're gonna, it's like woo woo. But I think we're all here on this earth to serve with some purpose, whether it's for yourself or you have find your purpose or something. Some people know it innately coming into this world, some people don't, and you search for it, and some people never find it. And I think if you have a yearning, which I know you do, and I know I do, then you have to go after it. You have to figure out what is it that you're supposed to be doing on this earth to make an impact or not. And right, and you search, and I think for me, because I was yearning and searching and open to it, the opportunities appeared for me to continue to grow and stretch and grow and stretch. And every time something gets comfortable for me, even my coach knows, oh, we got to change some stuff. Because when it gets boring or comfortable or status quo is what we would call it, we know we have to shake it up,
Yeah.
because we know that in a place of comfort, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you are dying. You're stagnant. And there is a death that happens, whether you see it or not at a cellular level. If you're still, there's no homeostasis in like life and in things that are living, right?
Yes. Yes. Right.
So that's kind of what I feel. I think my growth trajectory has gone bonkers in the last year, from like 2020, like 2019, 2020, like all these things that have happened, like just even myself and how I handle like the challenges or handle like surprises is what I call them. Or like, oh, this is interesting. Like kind
Yeah.
of like what Tony was like, this is interesting, instead of like freaking out. Like, I mean, I'm a very emotional, I emote a lot. Like, that's
Yeah.
just who I am. I'm not like happy, smile, sad, frown. Like, that's me. Like, I can't not do it. Some people are like the same all the time. That's
Sure.
not me.
Yeah.
And I'm very like out loud as a person. And so my intention sometimes I can't control it. Like it's like a beast that comes out. So part of my growth now is to be calm and not the Tasmanian devil. And I actually called this morning about what I think that's different this year going into 24 is I'm very still.
Hmm.
And then the stillness I'm in right now is almost alarming to me, because I don't know what to do with this, because I've never been still.
That's so interesting. And you know what? I think I see that a little bit. I was noticing. So Alicia and I were recently at an event together that maybe we'll tell you about in a future podcast. Um, and we were with someone who there was like breakthrough moments for some people, and this person didn't have a breakthrough and who really wanted a breakthrough for this particular piece we were working on. And Alicia, you came up and you said, you listened, and then you said to this person, you know, maybe there's a reason that you didn't have this breakthrough, because it might have, I don't remember the exact words you used, but something to the effect of maybe you need to process all of these other things that are happening right now for you and let that sit. And that was a beautiful demonstration of something that was available to you, I think, because of a stillness in you. Like you were able to like absorb
Yes.
and then reflect it back like a like this kind of like still pool of, you know, beautiful energy that I think was probably only possible because you have found that stillness.
Yeah, I think it's been very new.
Mm,
Like I'm still familiar. It's like you will develop yourself into to different versions. Like I always tell people, I've been married to many different men, and he's been married to many different women, meaning
yeah.
different versions of who we have been over the 23 years.
Yeah.
And I'm coming into another version of myself. I already know that.
Yeah.
And I really like this version that I'm turning into. And I know that there's so much more to go. And I'm really excited to stretch and see what that will be.
Yeah.
Um, but I think part of it is not the lack of reaction is what I'm
Mhm.
looking, because I was a very reactive person.
Yeah.
And sometimes that reaction was not the best reaction where there's a lot of regret after, right? Because
Mm,
you're just in the
yes.
moment, not being thoughtful and intentional about how is that going to affect everyone else around you, right? I
Mhm.
understand you're having a tantrum, but how is that going to affect everyone around you? And this
Yeah.
also goes back to agents. Like you might be freaking out inside, but sometimes you have to be intentional about how is my client going to feel about this if I react in
Mhm.
that manner? How is the other agent going to, like, is
Absolutely.
that worth, like, go and just take a breath. Like,
Yeah.
don't go in the, the keyboard warriors that start going crazy. There's even that meme of the cat, like, you're just
Yeah.
freaking losing it. And you're like, maybe you should just sleep on it for a minute. Like,
Right.
nobody dies in real estate. I
Right.
worked in
Right.
psychology. And so
Yeah.
I think that did give me that perspective as well. And that's what happens when you get sick, an illness happens, a loss happens, something life-changing happens, I think.
Hmm.
Um, it forces you to take a look at, like, is this really worth like losing? Like every time I've just let things go, it magically just works itself out.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
like not
Yes.
right. Have you noticed,
Yes.
instead of assigning so much like
Yeah.
grievance around it and making it turn into something that doesn't need to be,
Yeah.
that's what agents need to be better at. And I think if that's what's harder too, is if you don't have enough business because you're not making your calls and you're not following up and you're not engaging and connecting the right way and building organic business, you have that commission breath of like, this is my only deal, so I have to do
Right.
everything I can do. Like, and that control is a scarcity mindset. And in
Yeah.
scarcity mindset, you and behaviors, you react in a really low level self.
Right.
That's it, all kind of cascades if you really want to peel it back. And
Yep.
when you see that happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's something really important to kind of recognize. If you're that person, then you need to think like, how can I flip that upside down?
Exactly. And that's what you'll attract. If that's the energy you're
Yes.
putting out, that is exactly the quality of life and the quality of client that you will attract to yourself, which
Yes.
you
And
want to.
agents and deals
Yeah.
and
Yep.
experiences. And, also like you want the support from home. Like if you're married and you have kids, like think about like, what are you demonstrating to your family? Because they're hearing you, they're seeing you react and
Yeah.
have these, you bringing that home and that energy home. And I'm guilty of that, and
Well done it.
I don't
Yeah.
have regret. I have like, wow, that I did that. And that was who I was. And I apologized to my children when I came back from the trip about who I was, because
Mm,
that's not who I am. And that's not who I want to be.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And what a
And
beautiful thing for them to see that
yeah,
self-awareness and the ability to change as a human being as well. I mean,
change
that's
is one of the coolest things. Like, just
yeah.
like anybody that's watching this, it's like, I want to be an agent. You can do it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that whole thing is, don't get caught up in the how am I going to do it? How am I going to get clients? Just freaking commit to it. See the vision of what you want. Find an agent that you're like, I love how they do business. I love how they react. I love their lifestyle. I love that you see them do things with family, talk to them, get to know them. Make that your model of who you want to emulate for the right reasons, not just because I want to make all this money, but I want to have this life and I see this person with this life.
Exactly. And that is really what I can't believe we're at time already. And we're gonna wrap it up in a minute here, but that's kind of the thought that I want to close with to give everybody. So coming all the way back from when the going gets tough, and we've given you some kind of like pieces along the path here, and Alicia's given you all kinds of things to think about and to do. But what we were talking about before we even started recording today was your vision for who you want
Yeah,
to be. And that vision
yeah,
can include avatar of the agent that Alicia just described, who has the things that you want to emulate. So you can put those in place and then create that exact, very specific, and it doesn't mean it has to be set in stone, because as Alicia just said, we evolve, we grow, we change, even in the person that we are. And, Alicia knows this about me. I got to a point relatively recently where I was like, I did everything I wanted to do. I'm good. I'm done. Check, check, check. Okay, what do I do now? And that's an awful place to be.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's very limited thinking. And secondly, it makes you feel like you're kind of like useless, like you're kind of like used up in life. And what I had done was I had forgotten who I was. So what
Yeah.
you said before about remember or discover your purpose in life, sometimes you have to pull all the layers back and rediscover, which is
Yeah.
something we can talk about in a future episode too, is kind of how you do that. But for those who are just starting out, give yourselves the gift of drafting a beautiful future vision for yourself, and then break it down into some tactical pieces. So what does that exactly mean? What are the exact things you're going to accomplish within like the next year, the next 5 years, the next 3 years? And then, like Alicia said, now what are you going to do to make that happen? Because we can write everything down in the world we want to happen, but you
Yeah.
then have to put the time in and the effort in to make it happen. So learn from the people who are already doing it. Reach out to us. We're happy to give you advice. Get into a coaching program. We of course recommend the one that we're part of, which is Ferry International. Tom Ferry is
Yeah.
just full of excellent real
The
estate
ecosystem.
experts.
Like I met you
Yes.
through it. Like
Yes.
it is around who you surround yourself. So
Yeah.
if you as a new agent or an individual trying to grow are around people that are tearing you down or not making you feel well, or just around really low thinking people, you need to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
I think you hear it over and over again.
Yeah.
Get out of
Exactly.
that situation is the number one thing I would say. Get the hell out of there because
Yes.
you cannot grow amongst all of that. It's just not going to happen.
Right. Even if they're handing you leads hand over fist, there's no growth in a situation
No.
like that. And then the other thing I want to give our audience just really quickly, because you are like a master of this, is what I think is so fundamental, which is an excellent morning routine. Will you share what you do in the morning?
So I have like a thing where I like to meditate in the morning. And when I started out, like I always do guided because I can't just listen to nothing and just sit there because I will fall asleep. Um, so I kind of got into it. I have a Peloton, and so I use the Peloton app. There's like five, I would start out with 5 minute ones. And then I was like, went into 10 minute, 15 minute, 20 minute ones. And then read several of Joe Dispenza's books and I downloaded a few of his. And then I, do the Bob Proctor. So I'll change it up and I'll do Tony Robbins priming. But I do love to do a little bit of a meditation and block some time off before I get going. And then, I have coffee, apple cider vinegar, like what you put in your mouth, your body. I'm really big on gratitude. I actually just coached one of my agents who's in a funk about like, why don't you just focus on what you're grateful for
Mm.
just a minute? Like, write it out like intentionally. It could be the same thing every day, just for a while. And then all of a sudden the weird things will come to you like, God, that was a really sweet moment I had with my daughter. And that's a very small moment, but you can be in gratitude. Then you'll start finding the little moments in life. It doesn't have to be big and grandiose. Sometimes it's like, I can see.
Right.
Nice to be able to see and have eyeballs. Like, can you imagine being blind right now? That would really suck. Like things like that. Like, I think it's perspective. Like, and when you're like, I'm glad I'm not in the war-torn country with bombs are flying around. Like, that's kind of a good thing not to be in right now if you're not there, right? Things that I think we take for granted in a world that we live in with so much abundance.
Yes.
But it's okay to not feel guilty. It's okay to be abundant because
Yeah.
I think we are all in different realities. So I journal, I read, I'm an avid reader. I read multiple books at one time and I do like to work out. So
Yes.
like, that's my thing. Working out's good. Change your body, change your state. And that's the
Yeah.
fastest ways to change your state is to move.
Yep.
Sometimes you just need to move and let the cobwebs kind of shake itself out and listen to some fun music and just get out of it or do yoga or go for a walk, just get some fresh air.
Yeah.
It's different for every person. And I think it just evolves as I'm, different ages and stuff. But
Right.
those are kind of my core things I always do. Like,
Yeah.
I don't always do them in the same order. And sometimes like, I won't get everything done early because I like to sleep too. I'm not like I'm not going to be that person who tells you that I don't get up at those ridiculous hours. I am here to tell you if you want to, that's great. Because if that's the only time you have, but I don't. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to like tell people if they don't do that, they won't be successful. I don't think that that's necessarily a measurement to that. But I
Yeah.
think whatever routine it is, whether you get up at 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, whatever that is for you, if you have a consistent, like it's almost like getting the crank start. It's like a warm up
Right.
to the day.
Yeah.
Let's warm up for the day.
Yep. It gets
And like
everything going.
now my new thing is like today is magnificent. Like today
Ooh.
is awesome versus like it's going to be. Because
Ah,
when you speak things going, it means
that
that it isn't.
hasn't happened yet. Yeah. You're living in a state of receivership, as Joe would say. Joe
Yeah.
Dispenza.
And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
So I literally say that before get out of bed in the morning. Today's
I
magnificent.
love it. I
Right.
love
Yeah.
it.
I like that. Like certain words are very like
Powerful.
spectacular, magnificent. There's
Yeah.
certain words that are like make you feel good.
Yes.
So those are things I would suggest to anybody. And that can work for anybody and everybody. And also, if someone comes in your head, like your mom or your friend or someone, just freaking call them. They're
Mm.
coming into your mind for a reason.
Oh,
That's
that's
and
good.
that's something I learned and it's something I do. Like for some and then a lot of times when you call them, they'll go, it's so weird. I was thinking about you.
Oh, that's weird.
It's
Yeah.
happened to me over and over and
Yes.
over and over and over again. It's
Yeah.
really weird and creepy, but it's not creepy. I say weird and creepy because I think it's synergy of energy
Yes.
attracting, but I
Absolutely.
always find that fascinating and I think it's so cool.
Yeah. So step through that door. When that moment of opportunity happens, step through it. That can make all the difference in what
Yeah,
happens.
it makes a difference if you're trying to call people like prospecting, like your friends, and be like, it doesn't have to be some earth-shattering conversation. It can just be like,
Right.
you just came to my mind. So I just want to call and say, hey, how are you?
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And you don't know, they may really need your phone call that day.
Right. Right. Likely they do. Oh my gosh, this is great.
That's how I'm gonna leave you. That
I
so
love it.
that's my
Those
tip
are
of the day.
those are great. Do just the last few minutes
Yeah,
of the podcast, just take that and listen to it over and over and
your life
play
will change.
things. Exactly.
Little
Your life
things do change.
will
Like I
change.
think there's all those books that talk about that. You one little thing, and then all of a sudden
Mhm.
everything else changes.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
magical.
It is. Ah, speaking of magical, this has been magical. Alicia, thank
I
you
love it. We could
so
talk forever.
much.
So
We'll do this again because we
yeah.
definitely can talk forever. This was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with the audience. I know everyone listening is going to love it. If people want to find you, how can they find you?
I am on all of the medias at Alicia, ALICIA is my Instagram. And I'm on TikTok. I haven't posted a lot recently. Alicia, I see your stuff all the time. ALICIARVA. And then the collaborative.re for Instagram. But I'm on Facebook. You can just look up my name, Alicia Soekawa, because I have a unique name. So,
Yes.
you can find me really
Yeah.
easily. I'm on
Yeah.
Google. I'm on all the stuff. You could just shoot me a message on
It's on
Instagram.
TikTok too. You can find her
I'm
there.
on all the things. Like it's kind of fun. I kind of find enjoyment in the silliness of it all. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And she's a good sharer. So if you hook up with her, she'll share fun stuff with you. Uh,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this. We
Yeah.
appreciate
Happy New Year.
it.
It's going to be a
And
great
happy
year.
New Year to
It's going to be a
you.
fantastic year.
It is. It's going to be a magnificent year, right?
Yes, it will. It
Awesome.
is. I
Or
mean,
it is. It is a magnet.
it is a magnificent year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Audience, thank you so much for listening. Feel free to reach out to Alicia or to us with questions that you have, ideas for shows. And most of all, we would love, love, love your reviews and your ratings for the show on the platform on which you listen most. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. See you next time. We are so grateful you joined us today. If you've benefited from the advice we share on the show, we hope you'll tune in to our next episode. Interested in learning more about my personal mentoring programs, our Career Kickstart course, or to pick up a copy of my book, Farming for Real Estate Agents, your step-by-step guide for becoming the go-to agent in your local market? Visit www.meredithfogel.com and click the Resources tab. If you are curious about becoming part of the List Realty family of agents, go to the www.thelistrealty.com website and click Careers from the About Us page, or find me at the Meredith Fogel team on social media. Thank you for listening. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. We'll see you next time.